I spent 5 years mourning my wife. I spent 5 years sleeping on the floor because the bed felt too big without her. I spent 5 years talking to a headstone that cost me $6,000. Then last Tuesday, I saw her ordering a mojito in a 4K YouTube vlog. She wasn't dead. She wasn't at the bottom of Lake Tahoe. She was in Bali. She was tan. She was laughing. And she was pregnant. But the knife in my heart wasn't just seeing her alive. It was seeing the hand that passed her the drink. I recognized that watch. It was a vintage Omega. I recognized it because I bought it for my best friend, Mark, for his 30th birthday. She didn't just fake her death. She stole my life, my money, and my best friend. And now I'm going to remind them that ghosts always come back to haunt the living. Let's go back to the day my life ended. June 14th, 2021. Lake Tahoe. The water was glass, cold enough to stop your heart in 60 seconds. Elena loved kayaking. She said it made her feel free. I had a conference call that morning, so she went out alone. "I'll be back for lunch," she said. She kissed me. I remember she tasted like mint toothpaste and coffee. She never came back. The ranger found the kayak 3 hours later. It was capsized, floating near the center of the lake. They found her life jacket unbuckled nearby. They dragged the lake for 2 weeks. Divers, sonar, drones, nothing. The sheriff told me about thermal shock. He told me that sometimes the lake just keeps people. "It's deep, son," he said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "The currents down there are unpredictable." I didn't just grieve. I disintegrated. I started drinking at 10 a.m. I stopped shaving. I lost my job as a portfolio manager because I couldn't look at numbers without seeing the date she died. And through it all, there was Mark. Mark, my college roommate. Mark, the best man at our wedding. He was a rock. He organized the memorial service. He dealt with the insurance company. He sat with me while I cried until I threw up. "We'll get through this, buddy," he told me, pouring me another whiskey. "Elena would want you to live." About a year after the accident, Mark told me he couldn't handle the city anymore. He said seeing me in pain was too hard. He took a job in London, or so he said. We lost touch. I assumed he was moving on. I stayed behind, guarding an empty house and a checking account that was suspiciously drained, living off the life insurance payout that Mark had helped me secure, before urging me to invest half of it in a venture capital fund that went bust 6 months later. I thought I was just unlucky. I thought I was cursed. Fast forward to last Tuesday. It was raining. I was bored, scrolling through YouTube on my TV. The algorithm recommended a travel channel, Hidden Paradise, the most expensive resort in Bali. I clicked it. Escapism, right? The host, a guy with bleached blonde hair and too much energy, was walking through a beach club in Uluwatu. Drone shots, EDM music, beautiful people. At the 12:43 mark, the host stops to talk to the bartender. In the background, out of focus, a couple is sitting at a cabana. The woman turns her head to laugh at something. My heart stopped, literally. I felt a physical blow to my chest. That laugh. It's not just a sound, it's a movement. She throws her head back and covers her mouth with her left hand. Elena does that. Elena did that. I grabbed the remote. I rewound. I paused. 4K resolution is a blessing and a curse. I sat 3 inches from the screen. It was her. Her nose. Her chin. But she looked different. Her hair was cut short and dyed dark. She looked healthier than she ever did with me. Then the man next to her reached out to touch her stomach. She was heavily pregnant. The man turned slightly to signal the waiter. Mark. It was Mark. He had grown a beard, but I knew those eyes. I knew the way he held his cigarette. I sat there for 4 hours. I didn't move. I didn't blink. The grief that had defined my life for 5 years evaporated. In its place, something cold and hard formed. I wasn't sad anymore. I was a mathematician solving an equation. The equation. Elena is an expert swimmer. She wouldn't just drown. Mark handled the finances after her death because I was a mess. The venture capital fund Mark invested my money in, I dug up the paperwork from the attic. It was a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Mark moved to London 2 weeks after the money cleared. They didn't just run away. They liquidated me. They took the $2 million life insurance policy, my consolation prize for losing my wife, and they laundered it right into their own pockets. I didn't call the police. Not yet. If you tell the police, I saw my dead wife on YouTube, they send a psychiatrist, not a detective. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly where they were. I became a cyber stalker. I analyzed the video. The resort had a distinctive logo on the towels, the cliffside onyx. I went to the resort's Instagram page. I scrolled through tagged photos, and there they were. Not on their own accounts. They were too smart for that. But other tourists aren't smart. I found a selfie posted by an influencer 3 days ago. In the background, lounging by the pool, Elena and Mark. Tag, #babymoon, #bellylife. I booked a flight, but before I left, I made a stop at my old office. I used to be a portfolio manager. I know how money moves. Mark was smart, but he was lazy. When we were in college, we opened a joint offshore account for a startup. That never happened. We used it to buy crypto back when Bitcoin was $100. Mark thought I lost the keys to that wallet. He thought I was too drunk and depressed to remember it existed. But I remembered. I logged in. Bingo. The wallet had been dormant for years, but suddenly, starting 3 years ago, it became active. Massive transfers coming in from the venture capital fund and going out to a bank in Indonesia. Mark was using our old forgotten joint account as a bridge to move the stolen money, thinking I'd never look. I didn't drain the account. That would warn them. Instead, I froze it. I put a security hold on it, flagging it for suspicious activity, but set the notification to come to my burner phone, not his email. Then, I called a buddy of mine, a guy who works for an international insurance investigation firm. Jack, I said, how much is the reward for exposing a $2 million life insurance fraud? Jack laughed. Usually 10%. Why? I don't want the 10%. I want an Interpol red notice. I'm sending you a location. Bali is beautiful. The humidity hits you like a warm towel. I checked into the cliffside onyx. I used a fake name. I paid cash. I spent the first day watching them. It was sickeningly domestic. They were happy. I watched Mark rub sunscreen on her back, the back I used to rub. I watched them order expensive seafood dinners. I watched them looking at baby names on an iPad. They were living the life we planned, paid for with the money from my grief. It was time. I waited until they were at the main infinity pool. It was sunset, the golden hour. The place was packed with influencers and honeymooners. I walked up to the bar. I ordered a mojito. I walked over to their cabana. Mark was asleep with a hat over his face. Elena was reading a Kindle. I stood there, cast in a shadow over her. She looked up, annoyed. "Excuse me, you're blocking the—" Her voice died. Her eyes went wide. I watched the color drain from her face, leaving her looking gray under the tan. She looked like the corpse she was supposed to be. "Hi, honey," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "How's the water?" Mark woke up. He lifted his hat. When he saw me, He didn't look scared. He looked confused, like his brain couldn't process the glitch. "Ethan," he whispered. "Hey, Mark." I smiled. I love the beard. Very fugitive chic. "Ethan, wait." Mark scrambled up, knocking over his drink. "It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I asked, looking at Elena's pregnant belly. "Because it looks like you faked your death, watched me almost drink myself into a grave, stole $2 million, and ran away to play house with my best friend. Did I miss anything?" "We fell in love," Elena whispered. Tears started welling up. "Ethan, we didn't want to hurt you, but I was unhappy. I felt trapped. And then the accident. It just seemed like a sign. A way out." "A way out?" I laughed. People turned to look. "Divorce is a way out, Elena. Faking your death is a felony." "We can pay you back," Mark hissed, looking around nervously. "We have money. We'll give you half. Just don't make a scene. Think about the baby." "The baby?" I looked at her stomach. "You mean the child you're bringing into a life on the run? That baby." "We have money," Mark repeated. He grabbed his phone. He was trying to access the crypto wallet. I watched him tap the screen. I watched his brow furrow. I watched the panic set in. "Access denied," I said. Mark looked up at me. "What?" "The wallet, Mark. You used our old joint key. Rookie mistake. I froze it this morning. You have $0. Your credit cards. I reported them as stolen identity fraud an hour ago. The hotel is probably declining your card for tonight's room right now." Mark lunged at me. It was pathetic. He was soft from years of luxury living. I sidestepped, and he fell into a waiter carrying a tray of drinks. Glass shattered. People screamed. And that's when the sirens started. Not American sirens, the distinct, high-pitched wail of Indonesian police cars. "I didn't come alone, guys," I said, taking a sip of my mojito. "I brought some friends, local police, and an agent from the insurance company. Turns out they really hate paying out on fake deaths." 2 uniformed officers and a man in a suit walked onto the pool deck. The man in the suit was holding a tablet with Elena's death certificate and a photo of her from the vlog. Elena started screaming, "No, I'm pregnant. You can't touch me." Mark tried to run. He made it about 10 feet before a security guard tackled him into a decorative bush. The guests were filming everything. I stood there and watched as they handcuffed my dead wife. I watched as they dragged my best friend up from the ground, bleeding from his nose. As they walked them past me, Mark looked me in the eye. "Ethan, please. We're family." "No," I said, finishing my drink. "We were family now. You're just content." They are currently in a holding cell in Denpasar. Extradition is a messy process, but the fraud charges are sticking. The insurance company is ruthless. They are going to seize everything. The resort fees, the clothes, the watches. Elena will give birth in prison. That's a tragedy. And I feel for the kid. I really do. But that kid deserves to know the truth about their parents. I flew back home yesterday. I walked into my empty house. It was quiet. But for the first time in 5 years, it didn't feel haunted. The ghost was gone. I slept in my bed last night, in the middle. I slept for 10 hours. This morning, I went to the cemetery. I stood in front of Elena's grave. I took a sledgehammer out of my trunk. I smashed the headstone until it was just gravel. Then I drove away. I have a life to live. And I have $2 million that the insurance company told me I could keep as a thank you for recovering their assets. I think I'll go to Bali. I hear the resorts are nice this time of year.